Welcome, YouTube. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fourth album by Project Pat. Basically, this album is called Crook by the Book, The Fed Story, and it came out in late 2006. This was basically Project Pat's first album after getting out of prison for a lengthy amount of time in the early mid-2000s, and 3 6 Mafia helped helm this project, which is pretty awesome. If you like the album Most Known Unknown by 3 6 Mafia, it's pretty similar to that, just with kind of a more rugged and grimy kind of edge towards it. It's the same type of vibe. It's basically like a more street version. Like 3 6 Mafia is pretty street already, but this is like a more street version of like the mid 2000s 3 6 Mafia. So it just doesn't have like the commercial gloss of singles like Side to Side, Pop in My Collar, and Still Fly, and some of those type ones, or Stay Fly. I think it's Stay Fly or Still Fly, one of those, but that's just kind of the concept about it. This does have some singles on here. Wikipedia does not list them wholesomely. If you go to Project Pat's discography, you can find it, but it really only lists one, which it just says the single is just Good Googly Moogly, but there's actually two singles. Like, I looked online for some music videos dropped from this album. Another single that was released was Raised in the Project. So Project Pat was trying to get out these street singles pretty quickly. This just has like a real kind of grimy edge to it that I definitely enjoy. I like the prospect of this. This was an album that I really enjoyed back in the day. There just were some good ones about this project. It's very dark and kind of street and edgy. Definitely the concept about it. It doesn't have much commercial appeal. I would say don't come here thinking that there's going to be like some songs like Lollipop or A Millie or something like that, those type records that just have a lot more commercial bite towards it. I mean, I like the fact that Project Pat maintained his street character. That's about one of the few weaknesses of this project. It's not like I'm expecting Project Pat to sell out, but well, no, I'm not even going to complain about that because this is kind of the cause. This is a great album. I definitely recommend it. If you need like another taste of 3 6 Mafia, if you know everything by 3 6 Mafia and you like albums like Most Known Unknown, Last to Walk, The Unbreakable, some of the 2000s era 3 6 Mafia, this is basically what 3 6 was up to in 2006. There's just some good kind of aspects for that. I would definitely have to say it's an excellent album. I'm going to give it a pretty rave score. And I just overall, the productions are fantastic on here. There's some good moments on here, just a lot of street edginess that's kind of like when you think of certain 2000s era street rap albums like Jeezy's Thug Motivation 101 and like Lil Wayne's The Carter 2 and like a Birdman album like Like Father Like Son or something like that, or Young Jock's New Jock City, or T.I.'s King, or Urban Legend, or trap music, some of those type records out of the 2000s, Rick Ross's Port of Miami. This is definitely one that has a lot of street edge and just almost wholesomely, almost to a fault, kind of has like that kind of street edge about it. This has some records on here that are pretty dark, and just even the concept that some of these are so dark, in fact, that just some of these records on here are so dark that it's kind of difficult to find like some recreational edge to it. Like, I definitely think there's a lot of songs on this album that you can smoke to and have some good smoking moments, roll up some swishers, smoke several good sweets, eat some pizzas, eat some KFC, some of that type of stuff as far as it kind of goes. But there are some records on here that Project Pat's main intention is just saying, hey, this is his everyday life, and this is kind of the concept about some of this street edge, that this is not all like sunshine and butterflies as far as that concept kind of goes. There just is some edge on here that maybe be off-putting if you're not quite as edgy in towards the lifestyle that Project Pat kind of has. That's just his name. Project Pat implies from the projects. He's Pat from the projects. That's just kind of the concept about it. But 3 6 Mafia fits right in. They don't overly feature on this project, but they have like a lot of supporting vocals on here. They just kind of are a lot more in like the background helping out throughout the mechanics of some of the stuff. So it's definitely a pretty good concept. They do drop at least two, or maybe even they do at least drop two verses on here. So I would have to say, but they're on here with a decent amount. So it's got some good stuff. But there are some good guests on here. There are some good guests on here. Life Jennings, Pimp C, Young Jeezy, Beanie Siegel. There are some extra folks on here, and it helps. I mean, I definitely would have to say it does help to have some of these folks on here, because this is a pretty street and edgy album. It's just the sheer kind of bravado of that lifestyle. You kind of need some variance. Just I feel like Jeezy fit this album like a glove, and Beanie Siegel, who's kind of an odd pick for this album, does too, and Pimp C definitely does. So that's just kind of the concept. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. The first single is Good Googly Moogly, which has 3 6 Mafia on here. They do drop verses at the end. It's just Juicy J and DJ Paul. I guess Crunchy Black wasn't in the group in 2006. I guess it was somewhere in early mid 2006 that Crunchy Black left. I would have to say this is a nice slanted kind of club cut. It definitely feels like Most Known Unknown from 36 Mafia. It's very similar to that kind of productions from that album. Feels like a Most Known Unknown outtake, and it's just a very murky kind of crunk hit. It just feels like another highlight, something like Side to Side with just a little bit less rave energy about it. Kind of just, if you could picture like a street single from 36 Mafia that they would have dropped around that time, like if you can pick like a street single that 36 Mafia would have dropped around this time, like the Doughboy Fresh with Chameleonaire or something like that, it just has like a lot more murky kind of street edge that just is not quite trying wholesomely to be like a top of the radio kind of club cut. This is definitely one for that. I would have to say it's just got, I would definitely say it's just got like a murky kind of energy about it. It's just a real good kind of nightclub kind of song just for that sort of bop. It's for the ladies. This is definitely one for ladies with some big booties and that type of stuff. So I just would have to say it's a nice kind of crunk number for that sort of thing. But it's just kind of a very low key and just kind of on the down low kind of song as far as that kind of goes. Definitely just like a rap charts kind of only kind of thing. This is about the most commercial gloss that it gets on here, you know, for the most part, at least in terms of singles, but it's just so off the side. It just really feels like a promotional single or a street single from 36 Mafia, but it is a pretty nice one. Definite good highlight. I'm not going to mind hearing the song where I hear it out and about. I'm not going to argue with this song. It's just an overall great one. It's just too bad that it had such diminished kind of promotion as far as like the shine that it could have gotten, but didn't. It's just kind of the thing. And then the other single on here was Raised in the Projects. This is like a real gutter hit. It's just kind of a street single with like some buzzy Texas-like vibes about it. It really has like a very synthy and kind of buzzy type feel about it. Just really kind of just lets the beat kind of cranks. It's very electronic sounding and just kind of, it feels like something that Pimp C or Bun B would do. I just really like the vibe about it. It's just a nice cruise cut for cruising around at like a slow creep in the summer. And it's also a pretty nice club hit, I would have to say. It just works in the club also. So it's interesting that Project Pat had some of these club hits, but this one is definitely more like the street single of the mixture. I would have to say this one has less like affirmation as far as being like a club cut. I feel like this one is kind of like the single that most of these artists drop that just had no real intention of charting, or it's just kind of one to promote the project more, but you just had to kind of find it. This kind of happens to be a thing, but it has a great beat on here. It's a great, despite the fact that it talks about being raised in the projects, it's just an overall great club kind of hit. It's just a very gutter street single, I would have to say. So it's just a real nice one for slow creeping in your car and just a nice kind of grimy kind of, just a real nice grimy kind of muggy kind of club hit as far as that kind of goes. Just a nice murky one. So to talk about there's 18 songs on this album, so there's quite a bit of stuff on here. And out of those 18 songs, I wound up liking 13 and a half. So out of those 18 songs, I wound up liking 13 and a half. So I'll recommend those songs to you. So they would be Good Googly Moogly, Purple, High Off the Ground, Cause I'm a Playa, Tell Tell Tell, Stop Snitching, Raised in the Projects, $2 Niggas, You Like, I Keep That, Crack Ahead, Get Down, How It Goes in the Gutta, and Get That Up Off Ya. And the Almost song has been Getting Money. So the Almost song has been Getting Money. This is a very similar beat to the song off of 36 Mafia's Most Known on. Been Getting Money's an Almost song. This is a very similar beat to the 36 Mafia's song off of Most Known Unknown, which is Got It For Sale. It has a very similar type production to that. And it's just a solid evening hustle kind of cut. It's just a great hustle song with the pulse. I feel like this is definitely one where most hustle songs don't have like the kind of club type energy about it. And they just kind of have like a more kind of day commute or evening commute kind of energy. This is definitely one that you could hear in the club. It just has a little bit more like a mild dancing vibe. It's a mild kind of crunk vibe about it, but it just has more hustle and money kind of in mind about it. So that's a nice one. But it's an Almost song just because the beat just doesn't hit quite as heavily as the one for Got It For Sale does. I feel like it's a decent one, but it just takes some more getting used to. So that's kind of the reason behind that. Talk about some of the highlights on here. One of the best beats on this album is Purple. This is just a very dark and crunchy kind of nightclub thriller. It just has an excellent hazy beat, and it's just a great song to smoke to. It's just an overall great highlight. Just pretty much one of the best songs on the album. This is just an overall excellent one. Just a great kind of one for just smoke sessions, just crunchy club number and all that type stuff. I would say that Tell 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 Stop Snitching with Jeezy, Mr. Big, and Life Jennings is a great highlight. This feels like it could have been a single. It's got a real nice, gloomy, and dark kind of vibe about it. It's a real song. I definitely feel like this is a song with a lot of realness, and Life Jennings does real well in like the vocals and the hook and that type of stuff. It's just a very kind of street cut, just talking about not snitching. That was a popular topic in the mid 2000s. Just a real kind of gloomy and just kind of overall this dark pitch kind of song as far as that kind of goes. If you do need some songs with like some midday commute and a nice commercial feel, and a real nice one for that is You Like. This has an overall nice feel. It's a good midday commute kind of bop on here. It's just got some commercial feels towards it, and it's a smooth song for vehicles. And it's just a good song for like a regular kind of mellow day. It's just interesting to kind of get this one where Project Pat, for the most part, kind of keeps his hustlers kind of mentality. It's kind of being like a hustler type dude and a more street type dude. But this is at least one. This is about as close as it's going to get to like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, blue collar kind of commute as far as that kind of goes, just after work and just kind of traverse with bill paying and that type of stuff. It's just interesting kind of get this. Just such a mellow kind of cartoon and just really just feels like a lazy kind of August, July kind of day or September kind of day, just in the standard summer malaise or something like that. It's just an overall nice one for that sort of concept. The Asian chick on the song sounds pretty cute on the song too. She's really a nice fit for the beginning of the song, so it's just a nice one. Another commercial song that's pretty good with that is like "Cause I'm a Playa." This is a great feature from Pimp C on here. This one just has some very summery kind of bop-ish vibes. It's a rather commercial beat for Project Pat, and this overall has some nice Southern Smoke kind of hit type feels about it. It's probably one of the best beats on this album, I would have to say. Very outlandish from the rest of the album. This very much feels like a gleaming kind of Sean Kingston. Maybe not so much Sean Kingston, but just some summer type cat like Shaggy or something like that. It's just a very much kind of resort and kind of summer hotel type vacation kind of spot almost. Just a real kind of kickback and beach chairs kind of song as far as that kind of goes. It's an overall nice one. Crack Ahead has a pretty nice beat. This is like a kind of fuck the haters kind of song, but this is just a rowdy kind of crunk like club tune. It's a great synthy beat. One of the best beats on here, I would have to say. It was just kind of surprising how electronic and how recreational and jovial this beat sounds, but it's really just about stomping haters and fucking them up and that type of stuff. So it's an interesting one. I like the pitch of it, but this is a pretty rowdy song when you listen to it more. It's just kind of the concept about it, but this has an overall great synthy kind of beat, and it's just one for like saying screw the haters and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. So I just would have to say Get Down is a nice one. This is another good smoking song, kind of like Purple. This is just a great slurred out beat, great smoking song, and just like a nice daily living, just kind of a nice evening based daily living kind of track. So it's just an overall good one for that. Project Pat really has some daily living kind of ones, just day in the life as far as that kind of goes. Like I feel like You Like and Get Down are some good examples of that. But another good example of like daily living for Project Pat and just overall good daily living tune to kind of have is How It Goes in the Gutta. This just has a very haunting kind of piano beat on here. This is a very haunting ghetto-like saga, just telling a story and that type of stuff. Similar to the stuff that Tupac would do, but just with the more creeping kind of beat. So this is kind of like a just like song just of a day in the life, but just in a more ghetto aspect and just like a horrorcore like and haunting kind of feel if it would be something 3-6 Mafia would do in that sort of sense. So it's just a good one for that. Get That Up Off Ya has some rave energy on here. It's just a very noisy song, and it just has a nice creeping kind of evening piano beat on here, and it's just a great smoking song. It's a real pulsating one. This is definitely one when you're walking home, something like that, just kind of being amongst the city traverse or the residential area kind of traverse as far as that kind of goes, but you're just kind of in a more dark oriented sense where you don't want to listen to something jovial and kind of like popish and that type of stuff. It's just a great song to kind of roll up. Just a good song to smoke some blunts outside and just kind of get some food at the gas station and walk home with it, that type of stuff. Just get like a burrito or a Subway sandwich, something like that, just to kind of smoke and just have a good time for that sort of thing. Great song for that. Great dark and creeping kind of beat. $2 Niggas is a looming kind of nightclub track with some realness vibes about it. It's not quite as jovial, but it suits nights out, I would have to say. This is a good song to kind of hear on a night out and that type of stuff. It has a pretty commanding kind of chorus. I definitely like the concept of that one, just being a large kind of club song for that sort of sense, but it just kind of has a lot more real vibes about it, more so than just a kind of jovial, kind of more recreational song like Purple or Good Googly Moogly or High Off the Ground or something like that. Some of those type ones. Just a nice one. Just kind of, I mean, not every single club song has to be kind of shake your ass dance kind of club song as far as that kind of goes. Just Drinks in the Sky. I feel like this is just kind of one with a little bit more realness vibe. So it's just kind of the concept about getting that for some darker kind of club oriented spots that may play some stuff like, you know, more Street Jeezy and folks like Yo Gotti and Project Pat and some stuff like that, I would have to say. I would say that I Keep That's like a regular kind of late day kind of song. It's a get money song also, and I would say it's a good hustler's commute kind of track. It's very typical, and it has like a nice piano beat on here. It's just an overall good one for just like the regular kind of late day kind of affairs as far as stepping out and kind of having some of that evening commute. And this, as far as that kind of goes, it's very kind of typical workaday kind of feels about it. It's another one kind of similar to You Like, and like how it goes in the gut of this, just kind of lackadaisical and kind of its affairs with that. I mean, some of these are just kind of standard living. It's just interesting kind of how some of these. I would almost say this is a good smoking song. Also, it can be. There's more than a few smoking songs on here, but it's just kind of like your loud pack or like your. It's kind of like your rage pack to like standard kind of living, just in a more kind of gutta sense. If you do have some of that aspect, but you don't like the overall kind of pop affairs and that type of stuff, but just like the flashy kind of sunshiny type stuff, this is just some good soundtracks to some of that. Great, plenty of good smoking songs on here, just plenty of good street affairs for that sort of concept. So I would have to say, like, I think that's about all the highlights. Another hit song I haven't talked about yet is High Off the Ground. This is like a nice, dark, bubbling kind of jam for big vehicles. It's another vehicle song like You Like, but this one has some very energizing vibes, and it has a very catchy chorus, I would have to say. Like, 3 6 Mafia helps out with this chorus. It's a great kind of revving song and just kind of getting rowdy kind of song, especially when vehicles are in mind and that type of stuff. It's kind of a club song, but just has more car kind of thumping and pulling up kind of vibes more in mind and stuff. It's just an overall kind of just a nice rowdy kind of song for that sort of concept. Yeah, I would say that about covers it in terms of the songs I recommend. So to talk about some of the songs I didn't recommend, which would just be 4 songs, which would just be I Ain't Going Back to Jail, Cocaine, What Money Do, and then Nigga Got Popped, which a couple of these are, I would say that a few of these, like I Ain't Going Back to Jail, Cocaine, and Nigga Got Popped, just have an overall kind of darker type feel about them that's just kind of a little bit different and not quite as jovial and recreational as I would have wanted. Some of these are just a lot darker and more edgy than probably the concept as to how I would listen to some of these. So these are not ones I would vibe with too much. Just have a lot more edginess towards them that's more kind of just not even like songs to smoke to and that type of stuff, or kind of to get like some snacks and that type of stuff. So it doesn't have as much of like affairs as far as recreational kind of vibes. But then, like, What Money Do just had a pretty horrible beat. That's probably the worst beat on this album is What Money Do. I just couldn't keep. And then I would say that What Money Do basically had one of the worst beats on this album. That's pretty much like one of the few beats I just didn't connect with in some form or way. I mean, for the most part, this album is pretty excellently produced and had a lot of things going for it. Songs like Purple, songs like Tell, 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 songs like High Off the Ground, good Googly Moogly is pretty good. Get That Mafia is pretty good. Been Getting Money's decent. Like Raising the Project's pretty awesome, but just the concept that What Money Do is about the only real dud on this album, I would have to say it is Wholesome. Like that's kind of the concept. So me liking basically 13 and a half songs out of 18, I'm going to give this album like a 9.25 out of 10, because if I had liked like if it had been 14 out of 18, I would have definitely said this album would get like a 9.5, almost a 10. I just was like a song and a half shy of giving this project a 10, but it is quite excellently produced, quite excellent album. Just overall great affairs on here, great guests, great moments. This would have to say the only real detractment from it is just the fact that it just does not have like the. So one of the few detractments from this project is just the fact that it didn't really have like a commercial single to kind of anchor this project. I know that that's kind of the point of Project Pat, is just the fact that he is kind of more street and gutta and wouldn't seem to fit with that kind of concept. But at least 3 6 Mafia had like some singles that kind of anchored it, like basically Still Fly and Pop in My Collar and like Side to Side and some of those type ones. But Project Pat does have 2 singles on here. Raising the Projects and Good Googly Moogly are pretty good, but I just feel like they just really feel like promotional singles from 3 6 Mafia more so than actual Project Pat songs. It's not to say this album is bad, but this is kind of in terms of like the aspect that's really about the only problem. Is just I feel like it's so off to the side that you have to be a decently hardcore fan of 3 6 Mafia to kind of realize about this project. This doesn't, there's not really songs on here that you can find to say, oh yeah, I know Project Pat like that. And this is kind of, you just have to do a little bit of research to really kind of dig this project up. And I feel like with the music videos, me having to look up on YouTube to even see if there were some and that sort of stuff, you just have to realize that that's kind of the concept. But that's why I wanted to do a review for this, just to kind of shed more light and showcase the fact that there was promotion for it, because Wikipedia doesn't even hardly list that there was and that type of stuff. So that's just kind of the thing. But 9.25 out of 10, I would have to say. The social score, I'm gonna give the social score an 8.5 out of 10 because there's a lot of good club songs on here and street songs and that type of stuff, but there's really not too much crossover apart from "Cause I'm a Playa" and "You Like." I feel like there's some good moments for kind of. I mean, there are some daily living kind of songs on here, just in a more street sense, kind of a daily hustler's mentality, daily hustler's life kind of feel, along with some good nightclub kind of moments like $2 niggas, Purple, good googly moogly stuff like that, high off the ground. But it's just kind of the concept that you do get day and night kind of fares for like blue collar and like a hustler sense and like night owl sense for like the nightclub, but it just doesn't have like the commercial edge towards it. It's not to say it's bad. It's just kind of the concept that you just have to search a little bit more for it and kind of understand that it just doesn't have. It's just very much more rugged and just doesn't have that commercial gloss as this kind of thing. But 8.5, there are some tunes on here, but you have to. I would say it'd probably be better if you at least like 3 6 Mafia going into this. That's the concept of how I would look after it. But it's pretty excellent. I mean, that's the thing. It's an excellent album. I gave it a 9.25 out of 10 for a reason because it is pretty damn good. But it's kind of like if you like Birdman, you should probably like Lil Wayne. It's the same concept here. Or if you are trying to get into Project Pat, you should probably already like 3 6 Mafia. It's just kind of the thing about it. But in terms of the future, Project Pat has dropped a series of albums across the past several years. I reviewed Walk and Bankroll several years ago, so there is that one. I'm going to get to some more of these. We'll just have to see some more of what's up with it. But this is definitely a pretty excellent one, so don't overlook this.